Hi there, welcome to this week midweek market analysis. So as usual, we'll be running through some of the major pairs over here and highlight the opportunities that I'm looking into for the remaining part of this week. Now do factor in that later today as well as tomorrow and Friday, we do have a couple of high impact news. This includes the FOMC, the Bank of England rate statement, as well as on Friday we do have the NFP from the US side, as well as the Canadian labor market data, right? So do expect and factor in some kind of a volatility whenever you're trading related currency pairs, as we're mentioning over here. So quick one, dollar index, we did get a pretty nice little move to the upside in a short term for the week, and right now what I'm looking at is potentially if we can get some kind of a minor pullback corrective structure over here. I'm not going to be surprised if we're going to see the dollar strengthen towards 107.35 area. So moving forward for the remaining part of this week, building into FOMC, building into NFP, if we can get that corrective structure as I mentioned, then we may have the short-term buy trade to the upside. Okay. Now, if you translate the dollar index relationship to the euro, we do have a pretty decent move in the euro dollar yesterday and the day before as well. So we kind of get a nice little push down, a kind of impulse up, impulse down. And right now, if we can get a corrective move here, building in, of course, perhaps FOMC later, maybe a little bit muted. And then if we go into NFP with a nice little flag, that will be a nice little sell trade, okay, to the downside, targeting around 1.0450. So euro dollar, definitely one of the opportunity to keep an eye on for the week, in conjunction with the news trade opportunity as well. Okay. Now on the pound dollar here, I'm actually a bit more of a neutral and just being patient. Okay, so pound dollar over here, we do have a little bit of a setup, right? This definitely look as an impulse correction. But if you're looking for a sell trade here, it's really tight. Okay, you're targeting maybe about less than 100 pips of targets. And for me, I would prefer to actually just wait for price to maybe come back down, okay, retest this low area, and if we can get a setup as a reversal potential, a crawl here on hourly, that would be much better for me to take the trade to the upside, because the profit potential is definitely way bigger than trying to catch that 100 pips to the downside. Okay, so that's my take on the pound. Okay, personally I'll be just waiting for it to come down a little bit, test the low, look for a cross structure on a lower time frame, and then we'll look for the buy trade reversal. Right. Aussie dollar is currently testing that 50 and 618 FIP. Okay, so far it hasn't really break through this zone here, but of course this push down here yesterday wasn't ideal. The ideal pullback would naturally be a corrective three-wave push, then that would naturally be a buy trade. So because of that impulsive drop, right, I'll just be a little bit more conservative, be a bit patient, and wait for a sign that the market indeed wants to bounce higher first. So right, what I'm waiting here is a V-shaped formation, and then after that a corrective structure would give me the buy trade. Okay, so sometimes it's always good to, I always highlight to traders, right, you always want to be very clear what is the setup, right? What do you exactly want to see before you commit to a trade, right? I mean, the FIP here, 50 and 618, is a key area to look out for. It's a zone that I'm interested to look for trade. But it doesn't mean that when the price comes in, you immediately jump in and trade, right? You need to have that layer of confluence, that layer of setups as what we covered, okay? So this is definitely not a setup to buy, okay? But of course, some of you may have different strategies, some of you may have different setups, right? Some of you may just trade the 50 and 618. Whatever strategy it is, I always stress, it's important to just gain clarity in what you want and do have the consistency in that, okay? So Aussie dollar is actually a good example, okay, to kind of highlight that 50 and 618 is not necessarily an entry point for me, but again, it's an area of interest, okay? So this is a classic case study where it came down to an area of interest, but it's not developing what I want in terms of the pattern structure. There's no trade, right? So that's this is something you need to wait a little bit while for me, before I commit to the buy side of things. Then we have the dollar Canadian. Dollar Canadian continue to push a little bit higher, but overall you can see this move to the upside seems a little bit lacking of momentum, right? We call it a crawl. If you bring in your RSI indicator, we do have a obvious divergence building in as well. So I'm not too keen in buying, I'm still interested in selling. Okay, there are two setups that I'm looking at over here on dollar Canadian. One is on the hourly. If this continues to do a crawl, okay, then that will build in a pretty nice little dip or sell setup. If it doesn't build in a crawl and this just drop basically, then I'll wait for a correction over here for the sell setup, right? So I'm looking at two setups potentially giving me that opportunity to get involved in the sell trade on dollar Canadian. Alright, so that's on that. Dollar yen did a massive reverse, right? So we kind of have a little bit of an impulse down, and then yesterday, Bank of Japan, the yen weakens, and then this basically pushed back all the way up. I'm maintaining a neutral stance right now. I'm not so keen in buying it. You know, this may continue to go up a little bit more and things like that. But again, at where we are in terms of dollar yen, I'm not so keen in buying. Okay, I mean, if you want to, you know, sell the yen, I would say focus on the pound yen instead. Okay, because the structure on pound yen gives you a little bit more clarity and upside potential if you're looking to sell the yen. Okay, dollar yen here, my take is just be patient, leave it aside. You know, I'll highlight again when the opportunity comes from dollar yen. Likely closer, I would say, towards maybe end of the year or even next year. Okay, we have a massive opportunity in dollar yen, but not at the moment. Okay, gold here potentially completed a 5-wave move to the upside, so we're expecting a pullback here. I'm still bullish on that, but again, you know, I want to wait for a clear setup to get involved in the buy. The minimum expectation is somewhere there. Okay, but it doesn't mean the market will just stop there and react off it, because this can build into a bigger corrective move, okay, before the massive run again. So you want to again gain that clarity, you know, as it comes towards this area. What do you want to see? Okay, so for me, I need to see some kind of a confluence where we have a high H1, sorry, a H1 crawl. So we can't get a 3-wave move, a H1 crawl, that will be a buy trade to the upside. Okay, so go here. Unlikely it's going to be this week's setup. Just want to highlight on that, right? And then we have crude oil. Crude oil again, it's coming down, but we don't have an obvious entry to sell yet, right? Sometime back we do have this sell trade here, but I kind of trailed it off here as this market continued to consolidate. You know, we exited that sell. We did not get a opportunity to re-enter, and the market kind of continued to dip. Okay, so for me, I'm still bearish. But for me to re-enter a sell trade, I need to see again a corrective setup. Okay, so crude oil here probably need a little bit more time for the setup to come to me, so not too much on that. Okay, S&P. Okay, S&P actually had a decent bounce off the 4105 area yesterday. Okay, so right now we're just simply waiting for a corrective setup to give us the pattern of an impulse correction, and that will then be a buy trade up, right? Whether is it just going to come here or potentially breaking above. If you can get a buy setup, I think that's worth considering, right? Worth noting to look for the trade. Yeah, so S&P definitely one that you can keep an eye on. Maybe the trade may come to us closer towards Friday, like NFP day. Okay. And then we have the pound yen. So pound yen here, we're basically waiting for a 3-wave pullback. Again, the key area to focus, 50 and 618, then that will be a nice little trade up. For those of you who managed to trade the breakout, right? So we kind of have another setup here yesterday. Kind of highlight also. Okay, if you're a bit more aggressive, then that will be a decent trade. If you're more conservative, I suggest it to be patient because of Bank of Japan, right? Again, can't really know exactly what's going to happen when high impact news are being going to release. So pound yen over here, yesterday's trade, you know, just for your reference, is very, very straightforward, right? We have a 3-wave move. Okay, on the lower time frame, we kind of have this little minor high here, little H1 double bottom. Okay, just to bring you down to the lower time frame. That's the setup over here, H1. Okay, price was here, and then we're looking at, okay, if we can get a break, you know, we have tested the area. If we can get a break of this, that will be a decent one in conjunction with Bank of Japan, right? So yeah, we got a massive run, you know, shift stops to break even. If this comes out all the way and tag us out, so be it. Yeah, but that's a pretty straightforward trade. So moving forward, if we can get a corrective move back down, then that's another buy setup for us, right? But of course, bear in mind that we have the Bank of England coming in tomorrow. You want to factor that possibility of a potential V-shape as well, right? So depending on how price is going to develop here, you may want to consider, like, if you have a buy trade, you may consider even shifting your stops to protect whatever profits you have, in view of the Bank of England coming in, and then there might be some volatility and things like that. All right, so that's on the pound yen. If you're looking at commodity space, silver here, okay, I don't usually look into silver, but I think it's building up something pretty neat. So instead of like emphasizing too much on gold, I think that silver is worth the attention right now. Okay, so we kind of have this massive push up. Right now it's developing a nice little ABC three-wave move. So if you can get the price to come into the territory around $22, $22.30 with a H1 crawl, a kind of corrective push to the downside, then yeah, that will be a definitely buy setup to look for. Okay, so instead of like just fixated on gold, I think pay some attention to silver, right? While we allow gold to have some time to develop into something that we want, then silver is actually quietly building into a setup that we can look into. Right, so that's all from me for this week's video over here. All the best, and I'll see you guys in the next one.